Welcome to Breed to Succeed. Kath McIntosh is the only one on shot, and you wouldn't believe it, Kath. I've got the Breed to Succeed sign right in your head. We actually have a special guest coming on the show, and I should have had the look on her face just then. She was a little bit worried, Kath. I think she realised she had her Facebook going on in the background, but that's okay. We've trying to do something a little bit different. But Alex, you're not on camera yet, so it's fine. Breed to Succeed today is being brought to you by Epitalis and Foresight, and I'm pretty excited about this show, Kath. It's going to be a lot for... We've been about the breeding people. These racing people are going to get a lot out of this one, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a topic that I think covers both the breeders, the owners, the trainers, and also your vendors and buyers for the sales. And I think, there's a lot to be taken out of today's talk, and we're very fortunate to have it sponsored by Foresight Epitalis, and Alex is with us to, answer any questions today that people might have about the product, and obviously, talking about OCD and what that is and what it means for your horse, and also, for the industry in general.
Alex is actually on camera too, Alex, so just so you're aware, we're definitely trying something different, and it's just a different way of doing it. COVID-19 has changed a lot of things about what we do, so we've got Alex there on the picture so that people can actually see Alex there. We'll just do a couple of little things before we get started on the show. One is membership. We want members. We've had good influx of members, keep continually coming through and all the rest, but to become a member at Harness Breeders Victoria, it's just $55. There's a lot more things going on. There's more episodes of these sort of shows. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. Harness Racing Victoria doing a lot behind the scenes. Become a member and you'll be entitled to a lot of exciting little updates coming up very shortly, won't they, Kath?
Yeah, that's it. We've got all these exciting prizes for this series. The series has been received really well so far, and I think, Harness Breeders Victoria, just the more people we have behind us advocating for the issues of the industry and for breeders, then the better that will be.
No one saw that, Kath, because I've still got one of the slides up, so that's okay. You can get them now. I'll do the right thing by you. Just remember to take the headphones off. The other one is a Trackbred. It's available online, so you can go and find that one online at the Harness Breeders website, which is harnessbreedersvictoria.com. And I'm having all sorts of trouble as well with two different computers here. You shouldn't be, now we're away, so I can see everyone who's joining in. Louise Pangrazio, Andrew Soper, and 4 other people have joined in, which is really good. We want as many people involved. That's the idea of these shows, is to get people interactive. Kath's back after chasing down the paperwork and everything else. The other thing we need to do is we need people to like Harness Breeders Victoria Facebook page. Please get on there and like it, share it, and like it, so we can build up a community. Desiree does a great job. She can't get a lot of the information to you guys, because if you like it on my page, she doesn't get to see that. We share it as best we can, but it's a little bit hard for Desiree, so please go and like the page. And again, there's other stuff going on. Not everything goes through my page, that's for sure. With Harness Breeders Victoria, they put out a lot of stuff. Desiree, she's a tireless worker, Kath, isn't she?
She does a phenomenal job. We'd be lost without her.
I honestly don't know how she keeps going. Rightio, another one of our big sponsors is Barrastock. They do a great job. Someone's going to win 10 bags of feed. I just decided that I wouldn't put your photo to it, Kath. I thought, it's got to have Andrew's photo on it. So Andrew will be very, very happy. Last week he was complaining about how cold he was, but he wants you to become a member. Wants you to become a member of Harness Breeders Victoria. He also wants you to win this prize. And I'm pleased to announce, no one else actually knows who won it this week, but the winner this week is Jared Maloney. So Jared's been firing in plenty of questions. So well done to Jared Maloney and Andrew Soper and Barrastock. We thank them for their continued support. Kentucky Equine as well last week. I think the show was very well received, and I just like the way the show's going, Kath. I think covering off on a lot of different topics that people may or may not be aware of. That's today, as I said, it's a breeding show, but it's actually going to look after a lot of the racing people, isn't it?
Yeah, and particularly with the standardbred industry, a lot of our breeders are trainers and they are owners. So I think there's a lot for this session to cover across that a broad range of the industry, and it also piggybacks on the last session on weanling nutrition and yearling nutrition and some of the bits and pieces that those guys talked about last week. So it just will tie everything in nicely.
Absolutely. I'm getting the questions. I can't get the feed up on my thing, but everything seems to be working, Kath, so we'll just keep going and not worrying it. What I might do is actually, you guys, Alex, you want to have a talk now? You want to have a talk probably at the end? Alex is here for questions, so if anyone's got questions, please fire the questions in and get ready for the questions, especially at the end. But we'll let Kath run through the slide and explain everything that is going on. I'll probably interact a few times, but if you have questions, please get involved in the middle of it, and we'll go from there. But definitely at the end, we're going to have both Alex and Kath available to answer all the questions. So I'll throw over to you, Kath.
Yep.
You're all good to go.
All right, so we'll go through in a slideshow format today. So we're talking about OCD and standardbreds, and as we've spoken about, sponsored by Epitalis Fort and Foresight, Interpath. They have been around for 15 years now. This product has been well researched, has been well published and peer reviewed published. So this means that it's been, given the highest tick of approval as a credible product on the market. So we see it used in so many different ways in the industry already. And in this talk, you'll probably become aware of some other different avenues that it can be used in to support our horses' growth and development, in particular their joint and bone health. So OCD. So
hang on one sec, Kath. I've got to go. Right, now we're back. I didn't. Hang on. I'll be in all sorts of trouble here. I've got buttons going everywhere. What do I want? I want that. Now we're right. You go your hardest, Kath. You're away. Sorry about that.
Right.
Yep.
So what is OCD? So the big long word is osteochondrosis dissecans, and hence the reason why we call it just OCD. Now, basically, this is just that it's a developmental orthopedic disease. So it specifically affects the cartilage and the underlying subchondral bone in developing bone in the joints of horses. It can occur in all horse breeds, but particularly we see it in the hock, fetlock and stifle as the most commonly affected joints. And fortunately for us in the standardbred world, the hock is the most commonly affected joint in standardbreds. But, we do see it from time to time in the fetlock and stifle.
Can I ask quickly before you go too far, is there a reason that it is in those areas? Like, is there... Or you got that maybe on the slide, maybe I've already jumped too early?
No, it's... I'm not sure exact reason why we see it more commonly in the standardbreds, but one of the reasons for OCD occurring is there can be a genetic link. So it may be due to the genetics and conformation of the standardbred horse, as opposed to in the thoroughbreds. We see a large representation of OCD in the stifle joints, perhaps a little bit less in the hocks, and more in the fetlocks. And they all have varying effects depending on their athletic pursuits down the track as well, depending on where it's located. So for us, fortunately, in standardbreds, 9 times out of 10 you see it in the hock, and the hock is a very forgiving joint. But basically, it's a complicated process, the development of a young horse and a young horse's joints and bones. And this slide just tried to give a simple illustration of basically this is the bottom of a bone. So bones grow from each end, and each end will have a growth plate here, which is this separation. I think you can see the cursor on the screen.
Yep.
And then this surface here is all the cartilage surface, and as the bone grows and develops, the cartilage, the bone grows and the cartilage will become a part of this epiphysis here, and will mature into strong bone. Now, oh shit, what's happened there?
You're right.
Yep.
We're back.
So if there becomes a defect in the development of that bone into strong bone, or the cartilage into bone, then you get 2 scenarios occur, and I can't see my cursor, there we go. You get the splitting of cartilage and a section of bone. Cartilage and bone can come off, or you can get a piece of cartilage that is incorporated into the bone.
You're right.
Piece of cartilage incorporated into the bone that has died, and this will be represented as a cyst in a bone on an X-ray. So that's the two representations, and mostly with the OCDs, we see this splitting off of the cartilage and the bone, and so basically the joint does not form normally. And that cartilage and bone becomes irregular and weaker underneath, and you can get flaps form. Now, sometimes they detach and they float around the joint, but either way, the joint gets pretty unhappy with this process that's going on. It's an abnormal process, so you get inflammation and swelling in the joint. Now, a lot of you have probably heard of OCD and perhaps may have seen it, but commonly this is what it looks like in a standardbred hock. So you get this gross swelling of the joint, and generally the horse is not lame. They may be a little stiff from being so swollen in that joint, but generally they're not lame, and you just see this fairly sudden swelling in the hock. And it can come up quite quickly, because sometimes you think, oh, have I missed that? But they actually do come up quite quickly.
They can come up overnight, can't they?
Yeah. I mean, there's sort of subtle early signs of swelling, and, particularly if they're a little bit fluffy coming out of winter, it might be hard to pick. But when they can get distended quite quickly. So this can present as early as 5 months of age, but most commonly around 10 to 18 months of age. And the hock is, as I said before, the most common joint in the standardbred. And there's a study done in 2012 in Norway. 464 standardbred yearlings that were x-rayed, and 50% of them had an OCD lesion somewhere. And of that, nearly 20% had an OCD lesion in the hock. So it just sort of shows that I think, there's a number of reasons for it, which we'll go into it shortly.
It's incredible numbers though, 50%, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's scary, actually.
Yeah. And I think, when you start looking for these things, you probably start to find them more. But as a rule, we don't tend to x-ray anything in the standardbred industry until there's something wrong. So whereas in the thoroughbred industry, they do a lot of survey radiographs of weanlings or yearlings before they even enter a yearling prep, and then for the sales process, they also have radio X-ray series for people to look at.
Yep.
So if you see that swelling, the next step is to then do X-ray to diagnose what's going on. You can see here where the arrows are pointing to, there's a fragment here that's coming off the bone. There's a significantly larger one in a different position in the hock joint in this shot.
Yep.
In this next one, the image is a little bit blurred, but you can see another fragment here, once again in a different location. And then this here is actually the stifle joint of the horse. So the normal surface should be nice and smooth, like this line down here. But you can see up in this area here, there's sort of an irregular area.
Yep. And
it's not as smooth, and there's some darker areas or lucencies that we see here. And that is a lesion in the stifle of a horse. So that's just illustrating another area that they can get it.
There's a swelling in a stifle as compared to a hock. Like the hocks I've seen, and it's quite spongy when it first happens and very distinctive. Is there a way you can see them in the stifle?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. They'll get fusion in the stifle joint, and it will get quite swollen. Sometimes just not quite as obvious because the stifle is close up there to the flank of the horse, and particularly when they're fluffy through winter, you don't always notice it. So, it's not somewhere that you palpate on a horse very regularly.
But you probably should by the sounds.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. It's just that young horses generally don't like they're a bit ticklish over their stifles often. So.
Yep, no, that's all good.
So these types of issues are treated a little bit differently. So with the hock joint, we always go in and do surgery by arthroscopy, and that's something that is conducted by a specialist surgeon, and the arthroscopy is, it's minimally invasive and very effective in getting rid of these pieces floating around, and also tidying up the underlying cartilage and bone where it's come from. Now, historically, they used to do that in the stifle joint as well, but now with these lesions like this, because the horses are young, when the surgeons go in there, all the bone is quite soft, so it's quite hard for them to work out what's actually healthy bone and what's just soft bone of a maturing horse. So now we tend to err on the side of caution with these stifled lesions, unless there's big fragmentations floating about, and just give them some rest and use products like Epitalis to assist in that regeneration of the joint.
That's good.
Yeah, so if you identify these problems, it's always best to get them x-rayed to know what you're dealing with and consult with your vet on what the best course of action is. Once they've had surgery, they just need some confinement after surgery, and then some paddock rest. And like I said, we're now incorporating products like Epitalis into their post-surgical management to assist in the healing of cartilage and the bone, and also because Epitalis has an anti-inflammatory effect as well. And one of the research papers that Foresight have done have found that you can get very effective anti-inflammatory effect from Epitalis within a day and 8 hours of administration.
I love that, the 8-hour part. That's huge research. It proves how accurate they are at recording what they're doing. Yeah,
it's precision, and it's a high quality product, and they've done the legwork behind it to get the information, so they know exactly what it's doing. And then you might be looking at this image here and saying, well, hold on, what's this bull got anything to do with, Epitalis as a treatment in horses? Well, this is Lab Rat. He's an 18-year-old retired PBR bull. And if anyone's watched PBR, these bulls are they are elite athletes. They're high-performing individuals designed for the PBR. This bull, within a month of being on Epitalis, after being retired, resumed, back in the crushers, ready to do their work. So, just shows how effective the product can be.
Anyone that watched Ride High last night would know he's named after Chainsaw. He's after the same group of bulls. So, yeah, PBR bulls.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Well, there you go. I didn't know that.
I know a lot of stuff, Kath. It's scary what I know. Not much of it's much good for this show, though, I can tell you.
So that's how to sort of treat and manage. So, it is a relatively easy fix for these problems. And I guess you can say, well, why does it happen? How can we prevent it? How can we manage it best? So now there's not one answer to this. There are a whole number of factors that combine. So there is a genetic component. The actual gene or link has not been determined as yet, but there are some studies underway to try and recognise that. As Andrew and Beck last week talked about, that it can be related to the mineral levels in their diet, so particular trace element copper, so if they have low levels of copper in their diet. And I think any young horse that's on a formulated feed now, they're all very well balanced, so if you incorporate that into your program, you shouldn't have any issues with that. Inconsistent growth rates, so horses that are having massive growth spurts, or perhaps their energy levels have been low at some point in terms of the ability to grow and put on weight, and then they're suddenly into a zone where they're doing that rapidly, then that can contribute to the formation of OCD, because the bone and the cartilage just can't keep up with the growth that's required of it. And also hyperglycemia and hyperinsulinemia. So in other words, high grain diets can drive this, and there's research papers to support that as well. So a whole host of factors, and even if you do kind of tick all the boxes, it doesn't mean to say that it won't happen. And you certainly see some types or crosses that more commonly than others, but nothing definitive to back that up. but there's certainly a genetic component as well.
Component to it, plus the feeds, which we've crossed off on with this show quite a bit. So that's how these shows do overlap, and I think work terrifically.
Yeah, that's what this sort of week was designed on the back of last week, just to cover this off a little bit more. Like I said before, majority of OCD is in the hock, and we're very lucky to have that because it does have an excellent prognosis for full athletic potential down the track, and ultimately that is why we're breeding these foals, is we want them to be an athlete or high-performing athlete on the track. Now, most of the sales have a requirement that, if a horse has had major orthopedic surgery, including OCD, that it is reported. So, take the time to read the report and make sure you understand it and discuss it with your vet. But really, unless the report says otherwise, you can be confident that you're purchasing a yearling that has the potential to reach its full athletic ability, and that if it has had, OCD, at least you're aware of it, but it shouldn't have any long-term effects. Now, some yearlings will, you can purchase them at the sales, and they might develop OCD after, once they start to go into work. So, I guess if you buy one that's already had the surgery done, it saves you a bit of money of surgery.
And that could tie back in with Andrew and Beck last week. We were saying about following up. I think Andrew said where you tell people that you feed Barrostock, and you actually publish what feeds these horses are on, that you don't change their feed and do a stress-related change to them, plus work change, plus everything else like that, which could, I would imagine, maybe not proven that causes OCDs, but could be a contributing factor to some of the issues.
Yeah, and I think that just highlights the fundamental points of raising foals through to yearlings and to athletes, is to keep things as consistent as possible all the way through.
Yep, very good. Jared Maloney, I'll get back to you, and .G, we'll get back to both those questions shortly, so that'll be fine.
So there was an interesting study, and it was done on thoroughbreds, but some of the information out of that I think is quite interesting for the standardbred industry. And so they looked at the relationship between foal growth, survey radiographic findings, so those x-rays done as they're weanlings or before they go into yearling prep, and sales and racing performance in the thoroughbred racehorse. And just a couple of points that they found out of this was that that the foals that were born at the start of the season, they tended to be smaller, they grew faster post-weaning, but interestingly, they were less likely to develop OCD. The foals that were born later on in the season were bigger, they have a lag in their growth after they're weaned, but tend to grow more later on in their prep. And these types of thoroughbred foals had an increased incidence of OCD. And there were other factors they looked at, but basically they had broken up the foaling down season into 4 and looked at the growth and the height and the weight of these foals all the way through. And yeah, so there's some interesting data that came out of that, and it'd be great if one day we did a similar study on the standardbreds to assess that. But we have made some investigations into it, but it does take some time. But and then out of that, they found that hock and fetlock OCD did not affect the sale price or the racing performance of the horses. These are the thoroughbreds, but the stifle OCD adversely affected the sales price, so a lower sale price, and also affected the racing performance down the track. And that's sort of around the way the stifle joint functions and the effect that having an OCD on that part of the stifle affects the horse, whereas the hock and as a rule the fetlock are generally very forgiving joints in the standardbred.
So that study there, though, the stifle, that was as far as a thoroughbred sale, that wasn't a standardbred sale?
No, that was all thoroughbreds, this was one study.
And they use their stifle obviously a lot differently to what a standardbred would.
I wouldn't say no, but the way they use their stifle is similar, but it's just that the stifle compared to a hock function differently.
Very good. Okay. Yep.
So just interesting, an interesting sort of study, and that'll lead on to more studies now from that data from that. But it'd be nice to do something like that in the standardbred world.
Absolutely.
So I guess the overall thing is that joints are important at all stages of life, and OCD is definitely not something to rule out a horse's ability to perform. And likewise, any joint issue can be managed. It doesn't have to be the end of a career. So in this here we've got Wiz. So he's actually a standardbred that is currently racing. He's had over 100 starts and is performing extremely well and is maintained on the epitalis.
Kat Mullins is actually on there, and I can't think of his name either, and I do know it, but Kat will tell us. She joined in earlier, but her father Danny trains the horse, and I can't think of his name for the life of me, but it'll come.
Yes, that's definitely her horse there. So and he's on the epitalis daily. So, and then the thoroughbreds up in the top. So the one that actually won that race has had bilateral knee surgery. In thoroughbreds, knees are a big issue, and once they've had a chip or a break in there, they are quite difficult to maintain and get back to racing. And so this horse has had both knees have had issues, and it's come back to win racing, and it's managed on epitalis.
I told you Kat was watching. Imperial Wiz. I do apologise, it just didn't come back to my head. Sorry, Kat.
And then below, it's actually a photo of Alex. Alex, who we introduced earlier, that's with her high-level dressage horse there. And so a lot of the dressage horses are maintained on epitalis, and in fact, it's a mandatory requirement that all horses for the 2021 Olympics or FEI events are maintained on epitalis to compete.
Wow.
So I guess it is the level to which those organisations are keeping their animal welfare and their performance at the most elite level.
Absolutely, that's amazing. So they have to stay on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. So is that the end of it? No.
No. So so the bone development is critical to every athlete, and to that yearling stage also. So the quality of yearling product leads to a quality athletic product on the track. So we talked about some ways to minimise the incidence of OCD, but there is that genetic component that we can't sort of compete with. But please, it's not the end of the world if the horse has had an OCD or had an OCD surgery performed. These horses have just as much ability as any of the others, and we just want to encourage people to still enter them in the sales, still buy them from the sales, and go forward as you would any other horse.
Absolutely.
So just touching back on epitalis as a general a joint product. They have had a study out of New Zealand that showed some very positive trends for decreasing the incidence and severity of OCD. There'll be some more work done on that as well. But also on top of that, there are some new things not far off being released talking about the additional benefits of this product in the industry.
It's unfortunate we just come around a little bit too soon, haven't we? It's really close to being released.
Yeah. So it's really exciting. But so the bottom line is, don't discount the horse who've had OCD. Seek advice on how to minimise the incidence. Be on the front foot for all your joint health issues in your horse at all levels and at all ages, because ultimately prevention is better than cure. So I hope that net gives people a little bit more understanding of what OCD is. Don't be afraid of it, and we'll hopefully have questions. I'm happy to take them, and so is Alex.
We definitely have questions. So we've finished with the slides, so I'll bring you back on to it, Kath, that's for sure, and hopefully I can. But I've got to fix Alex up. She's turned around. So please, anyone out there that has questions, and we've got a few, we'll actually go. I'll have to go from the bottom up because Denise Jackson asked, does confirmation have any connection to OCD? And Alex, you'll please chime in at any time too as well, and give Kath a breather as well. But does confirmation have any connection to OCD?
No, not with the formation of the actual OCD. However, it can, particularly in the early days when their foal, can affect the stability of the joints, and that can lead to sort of other issues. So it's about trying to stabilise those legs of those wonky foals in the early days to try and promote stability and growth so that they grow in the proper way and that their conformation is good as possible, so that the least amount of stress are placed on the joints.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Alex, did you have anything to add? Make sure that people can actually hear you. That's one of my big concerns.
No, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. No, nothing other than to answer Jared's question about epitalus treatment post arthroscopic surgery. Certainly in those cases, one of the benefits of epitalus is it is a very potent anti-inflammatory. It is non-swabbable as well, which is obviously going to be important for these racing horses. So in those arthroscopic cases, we would absolutely be recommending the horse be on epitalus during its recovery, but also as the horse continues its work to become returning its form back to racing, because it does just keep on top of any subclinical inflammation that might be occurring within the joint. So it does cross over from being a product for treatment to also a product for maintenance for these working horses.
Yeah, so and that'll keep them going. So this is good between you and Andrew Soper. He's answered half our other questions. Oh, Kath, we've had questions coming in, but they've been Andrew Soper's done a good one. .G asks, can this also happen by putting weight on too quickly for their growing?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Heavy horses put more stress on joints. So if they're rapidly growing and they're quite overweight, and I think Andrew touched on it last week as well, then that can contribute to issues with their bone development.
Is there a time when researchers found we should start treating with epitalus? Like, is it a waste of time giving it to a horse that has no clinical signs of lameness, OCDs, or anything like that? Does it have properties that could actually help them grow into a better horse?
Alex, you go with this one.
Certainly. Once you're seeing that lameness or stiffness or obvious irregularities in the horse's stride, that's probably indicating that there's some changes going on within the joint that you're then having to manage. Whereas if we can manage these horses prior to them getting to that point, so so that the inflammation within the joint doesn't progress so quickly, there's absolutely merit for having these younger working horses on the product, so that you don't end up with a damaged joint further down the track.
Yeah, so it is beneficial. So if you think something of a horse, don't be scared to start them on it, especially. And is there an age limit? Like, is not an age limit, but is there a recommendation of when you should or shouldn't start it?
Well, look, I think it depends on the work volume of the horse. But you remember, it's the young horses that do crazy things in the paddock that they might wrench a joint and we don't necessarily notice. But certainly, once the horses are broken and doing a fair degree of work, I'd certainly be including all of my young horses on epitalus sport, just to manage those things that you don't necessarily see so obviously.
Just a little bit of a touch on Epitalus, the company, because it's a funny company to find. I must say, there's not a real website, and even your Facebook, but you let the product itself basically sell itself. That's true. Pretty
much, yeah. Look, we're a very small company. Often people are surprised to find that we're not, a massive multinational. So I think globally we employ 13 or 14 people. Head offices in Ballarat. And the products are manufactured in the top of the South Island in New Zealand. So small little company, but incredibly passionate team, and any profits that have been made have been ploughed back into the research and development and to understand better how the products work and be able to validate and support the claims that we do make with how epitalus works and the sort of results that owners are likely to see.
And doing that research.
Correct. Yeah. And we have such the amount of research that we have currently, and what we're due to publish this year is probably more in line with a pharmaceutical drug, but it's really, really solid evidence, and that's why we do have a guarantee associated with the product in those symptomatic cases. So it really does become a no risk investment for owners.
Jared Maloney, what is the dosage of Epitalis and the cost of a treatment?
It's a 4 ml daily dose. That's based on a 600 kilo horse. And
So
the
a lot
cost
of
per
Standardbreds
day
would be a
is,
bit later.
yeah, a little bit lighter. The cost per day, obviously it depends on the retail pricing, but it's around about sort of the $2.40, $2.60 a day. So, less than a cup of coffee, and it's a massive investment in the soundness and longevity of that horse's career.
You the one thing I do like, you're passionate, like you ride show jumping and eventing horses. Sorry, I forgot. I lost the word. My daughter.
Dressage.
You only do the dressage. You don't jump. You don't jump the sticks.
I'm a stand dancer.
Oh,
I do jump, but
it's
I'm a bit OCD. So I'm as in the other OCD. So I'm a dressage rider.
It's but the fact that you do that and you ride like an older horse, you can feel the difference in them, and you do back that research up. That's the other component about it. It's not like you've just put a product out on the market and you put it out there and say, yes, it works, and walk away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're very proud of the research that we've got that backs the product.
Very good. Our questions have been quiet today, Alex. So, I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe they're a bit shy. I don't know, but I think, and I know a lot of people in the industry do use this product. There's no hassles that way, and we use it. And I know there's plenty of people around that do. I better not say their names just in case they meant to be using a different product. But you definitely see it around, which I think that part of it's very, very good. We'll run through a couple of little things, and hopefully we might get a few more questions. But otherwise, that's okay. I didn't mean to drop you just then either, Alex. I apologise for that. Couple of episodes coming up. Next week's episode is with Brett Coffey. It will be done through Zoom with the recent announcements of everything that's going on just at the minute. I think most of ours will probably be Zoom, Kath. We're not 100% sure where we sit with everything that's been announced today, but definitely with Brett Coffey, we're going to be a Zoom meeting. Episode's at 8 is actually with Kath McIntosh, and we'll have a talk because it's pretty much a YouTube video, so we might be able to do that one for a Zoom link up as well. So hopefully we'll be able to bring those two on date. And unfortunately, this one I really wanted to get there and catch up with Dr. Sarah Gray and the importance of foaling down, especially at that time in August 23. But we'll see what's going on. It's a ever-changing world, Kath. We don't know what is gonna happen and where we're at. But that'll be week 9. So and then we've got our last week. But we've probably got a couple others. We had a few suggestions of some ideas going forward. Myself and Kath have a couple of ideas as well going forward. So we've just got to, I suppose, wait and see and monitor the situation. I suppose we never know what's happening from week to week, so it's a bit of a tricky one.
Yeah, that's right. And we've had some really good feedback from people watching the series. So, initially we tried to cover a broad range of topics to sort of pick up, a wide variety of the industry. So I'm happy to kind of tweak and change those last couple of episodes to suit some of the more the topics we've had a bit more inquiry about, really. So,
yeah, like the frozen semen and that component of it as well.
Yeah.
If you're watching this on replay, though, please fire the questions in, and we will get the answers for you. We'll get back in touch with Alex, and we can actually forward them on that way as well, and can go from there. We've got Louise Pangrazio loves it, which is great, uses it and loves it. And Murphing, who's had most of her questions answered by Jared Maloney today, so which is Andrew Soper. Everything explained so well, no need for questions. Thank you. So you did too good a job, Kath. That's the problems.
It can be a really complicated topic, OCD, in how it, the cartilage and bone and how that forms. But I think just trying to simplify it and understand what it means and that it doesn't mean the end of your athlete, I think, is the main point, take-home points.
I think that's one of the real points that I took out of it, is that any of them are not terminal. It doesn't mean walk away, but consult with your vet is the one thing you do say, that because just even if you look at it and you say, it's not that bad, you should always just consult with your vet just to get that second opinion, and plus a much more learned opinion.
Yeah, and historically, you've always got to do the surgical component of it. That's a not doing the surgery is a deal breaker. You have to do that, but how we manage them after surgery has changed a lot now. With products like Epitalis on the market, we can include in their rehabilitation, I guess, and even with some of these athletes when they get to the track, the rehabilitation side of it, and we've just got such a fine-tuned horse athlete out there now that we can keep them going for a lot longer.
A little horse like Imperial Wiz, one of the horses that was featured there before in the photo, he's probably a testament to that. Is that he with the regional lockdown and all the rest, he came back a different horse. He's a lot more aggressive horse. His racing style's probably changed a little bit. He was probably a bit one-dimensional in that class that he was in, whereas they drive him a lot more aggressive. Jody Quinlan's quite happy to bowl him up to the front and keep bowling him along. So it's definitely helping him, that's for sure.
I think when you take any pain away from a horse, it does improve their confidence on the track and their ability to push on.
Very good. Murphing's a quick one. Rough cost of surgery, Kath? Like, it depends. It would be an open-ended question, I would imagine. So
yeah, so it definitely has to be performed by a specialist surgeon, and usually most specialist surgeons are charging around $3,000 to $3,500 for a joint arthroscopy. The other thing to keep in mind with OCD is that it's quite commonly bilateral, so both legs will have an issue, just that one will be worse than the other. So when we do X-ray what appears to be the problem leg, we always have a look at the other leg as well, because if there's even just the smallest lesion started there, the surgeons will tidy that up at the same time.
Wow, that's important. Yep. That's incredibly important, that is. So, yeah. Nick Hooper, I have a 2-year-old who had OCD in both hind legs, which is back to what you said, and has been successfully operated on, and she is ready to race very soon. So Nick's going pretty good with what his breeding stock as well. He's up and about. Alex, I will say thank you very much for joining us on the line. It would have been so much better if you could have been here in person. It's a beautiful day. Andrew Soap, if you're watching, mate, it's not even cold. Kath might look cold, but it's not even cold. We've got a couple other things we've got to do, but I'll let you go, Alex, because you've been sitting there so patiently. So we'll let you go, and I'll I don't know how I'm going to do that. You're going to hang up for me, I reckon, might be the safest way, because I'll crash everything else. But thank you very much, Alex Medved. Did I say that right, Kath?
We'll leave it at that.
I can't believe they give me a talking job and I can't talk properly. But
Thanks, Alex.
And Alex, if people want to get in touch with you, they can actually get in touch through Foresight or contact Harness Breeders, and they'll forward them on. So if people have questions and they don't want to ask them on the video, please don't be scared to ask afterwards. That's what we're raising awareness for what we're doing. So thank you very much, Alex. I'll let you hang up, and I'll go back to myself and Kath, and Kath's there. But Kath,
Can I just butt in for a minute, Paul, and say happy birthday today? You do not look a day over 50.
Not all about me, thank you very much. And I'm not 50, smarty pants. So that has been brought up a bit. I think .G or someone said 21, or Andrea Gorman said 21 candles. I love both of those a lot more than you right at the minute. Thank you very much. Sponsors. We have to look after sponsors. I actually got rid of Alec a bit early because this is actually for the Foresight. Now, what have I done with I might have to go to this one, I think. And, yeah, here it is there. So the winners of today's prize actually will be getting a 1 litre...
1 litre tub of the oral liquid Epitalis. So retails around the $600 mark. So, it's a terrific prize. You
wouldn't believe it, Kath. I just put a banner across your head, so I'm very sorry about that. So, isn't it good that we've got a bucket this time instead of my oldie bag? I'm a lot happier. I'm a lot happier with that as well. So,
hey, so are we ready?
Yes.
I'll see who I grab. Greg Thompson. Greg Thompson from Young.
From Young, very good. I believe it. So Greg Thompson from Young, which is, I think they've taken a prize last week as well, the New South Welsh people. So that'll be good. Thank you very much, .G, and thank you very much for saying I'm only 21. That's why I'm not on camera anymore. The hair's fallen out and everything else is going good. Do you look at horses' teeth? Yeah, very good. Thank you, Sue. And it is a great prize. So good interaction. We appreciate everyone getting involved. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed the show, and we will be back. I'll be back, as I said, next week with Brett Coffey via Zoom one, which was always going to happen anyway. So it could be a Nick Hooper one. We might go for way longer than what we should, Kath. Who knows how?
Once you get Brett talking about pedigrees, there's an endless amount of knowledge there. So I think it should be a really good week.
As long as Carlton aren't playing, we'll be fine. And if Carlton's playing, we do not expect anyone else to be interacting with us. Thank you very much to Barra Stock. Big, huge thank you to Foresight. Must give a shout out to Harness Racing Victoria as well. I don't mention them enough, but they actually are a sponsor. They give to us.
They've thrown their complete support behind this.
Absolutely, yep, and they're wrapped with the feedback as well. Harness Breeders Victoria, get onto the Facebook page and hit like. Please like the Harness Breeders Victoria page, like that, and then go to the Harness Breeders Victoria website as well and go from there. And if you're watching it and you want to on YouTube, don't be scared to hit subscribe to Campbell's Comments. I wouldn't mind that, but this is not about me. I've had enough about me today. I'm going to throw to our ending, and Murphing is wrapped, and one of our sponsors is wrapped, Mr. Soper. So, yep, that's good. We love the feedback, and we'll be back 4 o'clock next Sunday. Thank you very much for your time.